My dad died when I was really young, so I was about 11, and my brother got hit by a car, so I had a handicapped brother. So my mum was basically just trying to single-handedly bring up 7 kids.
That is tough.
There was political graft. There was like Jules Davis's
G Davis, yeah.
G Davis's Innocent, and there was some kind of weird bit of poetry that was written on a wall near me.
That wasn't really being put up with spray paint. That was being painted on walls.
That was being painted on walls with a paintbrush. Yeah. People didn't use spray paints. You know?
No.
I've always roller skated. I love it. It's like a sense of freedom. It's a sense of flying. It's like I can go everywhere. I used to put them on in the morning and take them off at night when I went to bed. I'll be honest. One of the big changes that people don't realise has happened since the 70s and 80s is that in those times we were more individually poorer, but we were socially wealthier. And we went along, and the Rocksteady crew were performing. I think it was for Panasonic. So this is. I'm not sure. It's in '83. I'm not sure.
Let's quickly chat. How did CanMan come up with your name, Snake?
Oh, we used to sit in his bedroom, so we'd be up all night just sketching. We'd just be sketching in our book, you know. And I don't know who came up with the death piece. The idea of it being the word death or whatever.
Or the Grim Reaper.
It was probably Frank with the Grim Reaper. My brother Chris told me recently that I told him that we were changing the world.
Like looking at,
I love looking at other people's work, and it inspired you, So I mean, mode was always and we were always trying to find caps and nozzles and stuff from different airspray cans and spray mount cans or whatever that would give you a fine line. You're always in the hunt for like finding this can that would give me a fine line. For 10-foot's work, it's basic, but it's not about that with him, is it? It's about the adrenaline of trying to get into awkward places and illegal places and a lot of letter forms. That was Bboy. Do you remember Bboy with Denham Elliott's son? He did that in my sketch. So that's my original drawing for Crazy Carnival.
Is that the original?
There's this, which I've had since I started doing graffiti, which is my kind of a folio.
On this week's show, we have someone who caught the graffiti fever in the early 80s and put up some iconic pieces like the Death piece with the Grim Reaper in Covent Garden and the Crazy Carnival piece and many more, who used to write with CanMan. We have the one and the only Snake in the back. Woo!
Hey, all right.
Yes, Snake. Great to have you in, mate.
Nice to meet you, mate. Nice to do it.
Yeah, and we've met a couple of times before, and it's an honour. It's an honour to have you in the cab.
Likewise, really.
And I've got to say, before I do this as well, I was introduced by Alex Ryan. So big shout out to Alex as well.
Yeah, good old Alex.
So anyone watching this, share this around the socials, and because basically what you're going to hear is some real kind of like old school graph. I mean, we're going to take it back to the root, back to where it all started. We're going back to the early 80s with Snake, so it's going to be absolutely wicked. So right, we ready? We ready to rock and roll?
Yeah, I guess so.
So I know.
This is weird.
I know. First two questions I always ask is, where you from and what was it like growing up, as a kid?
Yeah, well, I'm from St Mary Cray in Orpington. Grew up kind of with quite a poor family. There was 9 of us in the house. So I'm one of 7 kids. We had a small house with loads of us in there, and loads of pets and stuff like that. My dad died when I was really young, so I was about 11, and my brother got hit by a car, so I had a handicapped brother. So my mum was basically just trying to single-handedly bring up 7 kids.
That is tough.
With one being handicapped, and
wow.
But it was a kind of creative household. My dad was originally an architect and was always drawing and stuff like that. My mum was always writing her poetry and short stories. So it was a kind of creative family, but kind of broke all the time. And we were kind of allowed to do what we want, but mainly because she didn't have time to think about anything else,
Yeah.
So just knocking around London. Me and my mate Chris, who's like one of my oldest friends, we basically jumping all over London and Red Bus Rovers and all sorts of stuff.
Oh yeah, do you remember them? Yeah. Snake, how much was a Red Bus Rover in your day? Like, it must have been about 20 pence?
Something like that, 15, 20 pence, just bus hop all over London, get back at like 1 in the morning, my mum was still awake, worried, because there was no way of phoning her and stuff like that. So, we were pretty loose to do what we wanted, really.
In terms of like graph, like early graph, I mean, obviously, we're going back to what the 70s, so there was a lot of like punk, there was a lot of, racist and anti-racist graffiti.
There was a lot, so my best friend was black, and he was one of the only black families in the area, and he got a lot of shit. And but I almost had like these two families, you know, my white family and his black family, and I was growing up amongst both of them really, and it was a real laugh, you know.
Graph wise, I mean the early graph, I mean we're talking about way before the hip hop scene. I mean it was very kind of like, as I said, like the punks.
There was political graph. There was like Jules Davis's
G Davis, yeah.
G Davis is Innocent, and there was some kind of weird bit of poetry that was written on a wall near Marylebone, which I can't remember what it was, but it was all about suicide. It was a weird thing, but it was interesting. So there was that kind of graph around. You know, I mean graffiti's been around since the Romans, invented paintbrushes or chalk or whatever, you know.
Oh yeah. And also that early, you think about it, that early graph or graffiti, I mean that wasn't really being put up with spray paint. That was being painted on walls.
That was being painted on walls with a paintbrush. Yeah. People didn't use spray paints. You know?
No.
And one thing we had as a kid growing up, we had one of the walls in the kitchen was painted black with chalkboard, and we were just drawing all the time on this wall. So we were all, me and my brothers were always just, you know, the chalkboard was there. It was like the whole wall was chalkboard, and we just chalked everything. So, you know, I was always writing on walls, even at a really early age. It got brushed off all the time, but you know.
You had the fever back then.
Yeah.
In terms of like music as well, you know, what kind of music was you growing up? I mean, before like the hip hop scene, the electro and all that.
My music taste has always really changed. So, you know, as a kid, I was in the Puff the Magic Dragon and stuff like that. But the first gig I went to was David Bowie.
Wow.
So we were all Bowie fans. My brother took me. My dad died when I was 11. I was 12. I think my brother took me to the Lad Insane gig. I don't remember much about the gig. I remember much more about the kind of the freaks around, you know, out in the audience. And
what, everyone was dressed up?
Yeah, and you know, it was really interesting.
Where did you see Bowie?
I think it was Olympia. I'm not sure though. I mean, I was 12. You know, I really don't remember that much about it. So Bowie was huge, and you know, my mum loved him, my brothers loved him, everybody. You know, he lived in Beckenham, which is not that far away. He was like a bit of a local hero. And there was a lot of rock and roll. My dad collected 78 records, which I've still got a lot of. He had about 3,000 of them, and there was a lot of old jazz. There was a lot of shit. Well, you know, he collected anything really, but there was old calypso music and stuff like that. So I'd be listening to that lot as well, you know.
So you had a good kind of upbringing with when it comes to the music.
My music's constantly changing. My music, there's so much music out there, you know. My mate Chris is, you know, family West Indian, so there's a lot of that sort of music, you know, Trinidad music and stuff like that going around. But then, you know, they also listened to Simon and Garfunkel, you know. So it was a real mishmash, and there was all the racism stuff. There was a lot of much more in-your-face racism in those days than there is now. I mean, it's still there, but it was. It's
gone more underground now, isn't it?
It's more subtle.
Yeah.
You know, in the skating community, which we'll come up to later on, you know, that's a real London mixed community. Multiracial, multi-gender, multi-everything.
Believe it or not, that was going to be my kind of next kind of question actually, was about the skating, because obviously the skating was around in the kind of, obviously the 70s, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So is that when you picked up, you know, the skating bug?
Yeah, again, still living in Normanton, my mum's, we were out on the skateboards a lot, and then somehow we got some roller skates. I don't remember how, and we were going up to South Bank because they had ramps, you know, under the thing with the ramps and stuff. That, you know, they've tried to cut it back now, but it's still there. So we were roller skating all the time, and then we kind of got involved in the street hockey scene, which was started.
So did you change your style? Because obviously roller hockey, a lot of that was with the bowers, wasn't it?
Yeah. So I've always had bowers or something similar, you know, and I've always painted them.
You painted your bowers?
I always painted my bowers. I've got photographs of my old bowers, and my new ones they're not bowers anymore. I've got stories, but I just sprayed those up last week. I've always roller skated. I love it. It's like a sense of freedom. It's a sense of flying. It's like I can go everywhere. I used to put them on in the morning and take them off at night when I went to bed. I would be on for 16 hours a day. I was in the street hockey teams that were tournaments at the Elephant and Castle. We were in the Southside Trojans.
I mean, street hockey was massive, wasn't it?
It was massive for a short period. Yeah. So we're talking about 4 or 5 years, and then it petered out.
What kind of years are we talking about the street hockey? Are we talking like 83, 84?
Again, about the same time as I started graffiti. Yeah, about 82 maybe. A bit earlier, maybe even 81 or something. I think. I've got one of the programs from 83 with one of the listing programs with us in it. Yeah, you know, I've always done it, and it was really big for a while, and then it petered out in the 90s, and I was skating on my own for a while, and it went kind of quiet, and I got a bit bored of doing it on my own. And then during lockdown, everybody started skating again, and now it's much more multi-layered in the sense of it's much more community based now, and it's multi-gender, multi-generational as well, you know. So there's kids up to my age skating all over London, all over the world. We go to Barcelona, there's like 600 of us go in September to Barcelona for a big skate event down on.
I mean, skating is absolutely huge now. I mean, you go places like Greenwich Park, and I mean, you was telling me the other day, and it's like Crystal Palace, and
that's where I skate, Crystal Palace, on the bridge outside the sports centre. That's where my kind of group is.
And you think about it, skating really does. It's brilliant for kids of all ages, between the ages of what, like 5 all the way up to 70 or 80 years of age.
Yeah, I don't plan to stop. You know, I'm loving it, and it's freedom of movement. You know, once you've got the gear, it's free, basically. I mean, in the winter you've got to do some indoor events, but there's loads of those going on. And you can learn new tricks, you can learn new movements. You know, we have sound systems. Norwood Park in the summer, we did like 400 of us down in the park, in the baseball courts, and you know, food, drink, families, DJs. Good. It's
vibe. It brings the community together. You know, you're like, you know, your little kids, the mums and dads, the granddads. Yeah, you know, it's a really kind of like taking it back to that kind of you know, real kind of like London community spirit, isn't it, through the skating?
Yeah, and it's not just London; it is everywhere. It's in Paris, it's in Amsterdam. You know, it's a global thing now. But you know, obviously, it comes out of America originally. That kind of vibe, that kind of style, and they're really good at it.
And also, you know, like back in the day, you know, London was very much like that. It was very community spirit, wasn't it? Like families would live a lot closer together. So, you know, instead of like nowadays, families live all over the shop. Back then, the family would live pretty much within the local area. So there'd be street parties going on, house parties.
One of the big changes that people don't realise has happened since the 70s and 80s is that in those times we were more individually poorer, but we were socially wealthier. So we had much tighter communities. We had youth clubs for the kids. We had, we had all these like the GLA supporting the arts, supporting graffiti artists, supporting, you know, all sorts of events. So we were socially wealthier. Now, where some of us are individually richer, a lot of us aren't, and we're much socially poorer.
100%. Snake, you're bang on with that. You're bang on. I mean, look, all the adventure playgrounds have shut down.
All that
you know,
stuff.
Youth centres and you know,
so,
and you got all that wealth and all that money out there, and all these places are being shut. And what the youth got to look forward to now, apart from hanging around on a street corner,
which is what we always did. But there was also places you could hang out. There's not much. I sense there's not much for teenagers to do. There's loads for nippers to do because their parents will push them into all these different clubs. But I think there's not a lot for teenagers to do. And like I said, going back to the skating community, that is one outlet for people to meet up. And also, London's been much more commodified. You know, it's all shopping. You know, you walk around there isn't an art thing. It's sort of, it's all commodified.
Oh, without a doubt. So let's get on to the old big question then. So, you know, how did you start getting into graffiti art? Yeah,
it's weird. I was going. So I was hitchhiking around Europe quite a lot in about 80 with my mate Chris, and we met some guys in Hamburg who were having a party on a train, and on a tube train, and we joined the party, and they became friends. And one of them came over in '83 to come and stay and visit, and he said there's this exhibition at Olympia. It's Panasonic, Casio, JVC. It's kind of electronic exhibition. It might be fun. It's something like, you know, about games and all sorts of stuff, and mainly, you know, sound equipment, you know, record players and whatever. And we went along, and the Rocksteady crew were performing. I think it was Panasonic. So this is, I'm not sure. It's in '83. I'm not sure when.
You can't remember the exact date. I know.
So I went to that, and the Rocksteady crew, and they were big at that time. They had like one hit, didn't they? And
was they wearing their tracksuits like?
They were doing all that. So they were breakdancing on stage, and in the background, Doze was doing a piece.
Was Doze doing his characters, or was he doing like a graffiti style? You know,
he was doing lettering. So I've always been into lettering because you know, my family history and my work is, you know, I'm a graphic designer, I'm a typographer, I book designs and stuff like that. So I've always been into typography. And he was doing some wording stuff. I can't even remember what it was now. And I was sitting at the back going, I can do that. I want to do that. So I went home
and bought a spray paint.
I bought a load of spray paint, and it was car paint, you know, cheap. I mean, that's all we had in England was car paint. And I went home and I had a big poster on my wall, which was like a big advert from like one of these huge hoardings that I'd found somewhere, or my dad had got from somewhere, because he used to always ask around at the cinemas for film posters and stuff like that. So we'd always get this sort of stuff and stick it on the wall. And I just ripped that off and I spray painted my bedroom. And you know, this stuff is toxic. But
I was going to say about toxic. The fumes.
It was toxic.
The fumes. Didn't your mum go mad at you?
No, she didn't care. She didn't care. She was always about like, do what you want to do, as long as you're happy.
And you're not hurting no one.
And you're not hurting anyone.
Yeah.
So don't you know? Don't steal from people. Don't you know?
Yeah.
Do you know, hurt people basically. But you can do what you want, and you know, we were a kind of creative family. We still are, you know. Most of my family are kind of roughly in a similar industry, you know, cartoonists, writers, illustrators. You know, 2 of my nieces are graffiti artists. You know, it runs through my grandfather was a typographer on the Times, a compositor on the Times. So back in whenever he existed. So
it runs through your veins.
It runs through my veins doing that sort of work. But this was big and colourful. And
what did it say? I mean, was there a character, or was
no? It wouldn't have been a character. I've never been that good at characters and cartoons, or life drawing or anything like that. I can't remember. It probably just said my name, to be honest. It probably just said Simon in big letters.
No, this is before you was writing Snake.
Yeah. We'll come to that. It would have probably just been my name. And the thing for me was about it was big and it was colourful, and you got this effect by moving your hand and you press the button and you get this line. And then I remember going in the back garden with a bit of hardboard and just trying to blend colours. So I remember just doing a panel. It was probably about as wide as this cab. It wasn't that big, and I was just trying to get like cloud effects, you know, just sort of subtly blending blues and greys together to see if I could do it. And I remember doing that and enjoying that, and then you know, so I was kind of on my own doing that. I don't remember how it connected really then with going up into meeting the people in town and Covent Garden and all that stuff.
Snake, was you like, you know, was you a bit like a lone wolf? You know, you wasn't really down with any crews, was you?
Well, no, I mean, all that crew stuff came a bit later as well. So, you know, I was on my own down up into doing that. I remember doing that crunch piece, which is on like Seven Oaks Road or whatever it is. It's under the train bridge.
I was going to say big up to Score, because he sent me a photograph of that crunch piece, and that was absolutely amazing. I mean, that, you know, it's
I look at it now and it's pretty rubbish. But
no, I mean for the time it was brilliant, and it says crunch with it's got like a weight on.
It's got a weight on it, yeah.
Like a black weight, hasn't it? It's an amazing piece. So where was that, in Alpington?
That was in Alpington, St Mary Cray. So where the train track goes over Seven Oaks Road. From the train track from St Mary Cray, that's where it was.
And what sort of year are we talking about for the crunch piece?
I'm thinking 83. I'm thinking late 83, early 84. I would have thought.
Right.
So if I started 83, obviously it wouldn't have been before that. So yeah, it's got to be around that point.
The thing is, you was a little bit older than us, because I mean you're probably about 8 years older than me.
Yeah, I was about 20 when I started, which is old for a graffiti artist.
Yeah. So what you know, what kind of hip hop or electro tracks were kind of popping off back then? Can you remember some of the key tracks that you loved?
No, I mean obviously the Message had come out in 82 or something.
82,
and Light would be a bit before that. There wasn't a lot. Then Wild Style came out, and I saw it. I got a fake feeling I saw it first on TV, but it was also shown at the ICA. And that's where I went and I met a lot of people. I met the Covent Garden a lot, I'd imagine. But it was, and that I loved the soundtrack of that. I've still got it. I've still got my original vinyl soundtrack of that.
That's amazing. It's an amazing soundtrack,
and it's really raw, and it's really bad. You know, it's folk music in a way. That really early hip hop. And I thought it was really interesting. It had energy and vibrancy, and I was a bit bored of the punk, and I was never into the new romantic scene that was coming out or whenever that came out. And you know, I was always more into black music than white music, apart from a few exceptions like Talking Heads and Bboy and stuff. But I just loved that energy, and then it went on to the electro beat stuff that came out. There was these electro albums, and there's African Bambaataa doing that sort of more.
Well, like the Perfect Beat album.
Yeah, yeah, exactly that one. Yeah, yeah.
That was amazing. That album was absolutely. It had Space Is the Place on it, Pac Jam, Perfect Beat.
Yeah.
Looking for the Perfect Beat.
Yeah.
And we're going back now, aren't we?
Yeah, we are. It's 40 odd years ago. My memory.
Oh, rock and play at your own risk.
Yeah.
Rock and play at your own risk. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of. I've invented my mum's bad memory with this stuff. I really. It's 40 years ago. I don't remember a lot of the details of that stuff.
Well, that's why it's important to capture this stuff now.
Yeah.
Before we totally lose it.
And yeah. So that was and I loved the cover of the Wild Style album and that Wild Style piece in itself.
And was any of them artists, was you loving those artists like the Dondies and the Lee and?
Yeah, but there wasn't that much information about them. There was really only that film. To inspire us. So none of the books had come out. I had a book on rap, a really early book on rap music, and it had some photographs of Graffiti on it. It was mainly text, this book. I wish I still had it. It had a green cover, but I can't remember much more about it. Yeah, so I was kind of doing this stuff on my own. At some point I ended up moving to Tottenham, hanging out, and I met Frank there, CanMan.
Oh, is that where CanMan was from?
Yeah, so he lived up that way.
I mean, what a wicked name as well, the CanMan.
I know, and he gave me the name Snake, which I've never liked. It wasn't original, but you get a name like that and it sticks.
So let's quickly chat. How did CanMan come up with your name Snake?
Oh, we used to sit in his bedroom, so we'd be up all night just sketching. We'd just be sketching in our books, doing bits of stuff, and we'd go out to the local park and we'd do a wall somewhere, and we go into town, and I did a piece on the side of the English National Opera. There's like a little tunnel bit there. When Charing Cross Road goes up and it goes into that S-bend. Yeah. And there was a little tunnel there, and I did a piece there. I think it was just S-Y, and he came out. He just called me that one day, and I was tall and thin,
So he said, "What? You look a little bit like a snake."
Yeah, sort of, and he just wanted to give me a name, and it kind of stuck, and I didn't really, It's not a bad name, but it's a real graffiti name, and it's like not that original, It's sort of.
Well, there's a Snake, and big up to Snake as well from Washington Heights, and you got Snake over there in New York.
Probably original.
Yeah, no, Snake is the original. Yeah, but you obviously none of you guys knew any of this.
No, we didn't know any of that shit. No. I mean, we didn't. We didn't even know who the names were really. There was the guy in the Rocksteady crew, and there was Lee who done the Wild Style piece. It was Lee, wasn't it? I think. Yeah. And there was the odd little snippet you'd get of piece, but that was it really. So we were hanging out, and we were hanging out in Covent Garden a bit.
So what? Tell me, what was that Covent Garden? When was you hanging around in Covent Garden? What, like 84?
I think even a little bit earlier than that, because there was a scene of kind of constantly people just hanging out in Covent Garden and Leicester Square.
Yeah, that's right.
So there was two places, and some of us would be roller skating, and some of us would be doing this, that, and the other, and then the hip hop movement kind of came in. So you get these people started break dancing, and you'd hang out with them. And I had an old mate who was a busker in Covent Garden. He was like one of the first robotic dancers in Covent Garden, Andy Sinclair. Did
he have a busking name?
Man Machine.
Oh, Man Machine
was his group.
Wow.
And it was him and a mate, and they did. He did the Volvo advert, which is the crash test dummy that gets into a car.
Yeah, he was brilliant at the Volvo.
He still is. He's still doing it.
Is he?
Yeah. I mean,
I need to get him in the cab.
He's an interesting guy.
Actually. Can we try and hook that up?
Yeah, I'll hook that up.
Yeah. I'd love to talk to him about the robot and all
so
that.
He taught me a bit of robotic dancing, and me and my mate Chris went over. We went around. We hitchhiked around Europe trying to do robotic dancing. Busking
and making a little bit of money.
I'm trying to make a little bit of money. Of course, we chose to do this in winter. Not very clever. And we got arrested in Hamburg doing it because there was no buskers there. And my mate Laushi, who's still one of my oldest mates, he he talked to the police and got the whole thing dropped off. But you know, I wasn't very good at robotic dance because I couldn't stop laughing. You know, it was like being set. I don't like being looked at and being the centre. I'm a bit of an introvert in that sense. And so we were doing the robotic dances. So this is before hip hop. This is before probably. This is probably '82, I think. And so Andy taught me that, and we basically nicked his thing and used it around Europe. And so I knew him in the Covent Garden. There was loads of really good buskers back then as well in Covent Garden, and so I was hanging out with them, and there was like these scenes that they just merged and melded together. You know, there were different groups of people doing different things, but all hanging out. You know, what you do? You hang out, and you'd be hanging out to 1, 2, 3 in the morning, basically. You know, that was it. And then the graffiti thing kind of melded into that, and at one point.
So was there like the boards were up? Was there any?
Were up, and
was there any graffiti like tagging or anything on the boards?
No, nobody was really doing it. Really, they've been put up, but then somebody, I think Frank got a phone call. Or somebody said to him, "There's a space for you to do a piece of graffiti in Covent Garden," and we're like, well, when can we do it? And he was like, "Now, you can do it tonight." So we're up in Tottenham. And we didn't know what size we had or what space we had. We basically got on the bus and we travelled down, and we didn't even know what we were going to do, and we came up with the idea of doing death. Frank had this idea for the Grim Reaper, so he painted that bit, and we literally just made it up on the spot. We saw what we had, which wasn't that big a piece, it wasn't that wide. Was it 2 meters at the most, probably wide? It's just kind of square, isn't it? Where there was longer pieces. By that time, somebody had done some stuff. I think Scribbler had done a piece, and there was the one with the hip hop with the shoe next
with
to
the high tech boot.
Yeah. That was done the same night or the night before, or night after. I can't remember. But there was some pieces on it, and we had this space in between. And that's what we did. But I never really liked that piece from an artistic point of view because I'd made it up on the fly. Didn't know what we were doing, and the paints were shit, and so you couldn't get a thin line. You could, you're trying to make these shapes in a small area.
It must have been like really frustrating trying to you got this creative stuff in your mind, what you're going to paint, and you got this, to be honest, absolutely diabolical crap watered down paint, and you can't, you're just doing your best with what you got with the tools of the trade.
And we haven't had enough practice either. People say that, bad woman blames their tools, but I also say, blunt tools make a shit job. And, so it's a mixture of both those things, We hadn't had a lot of practice. We were making it up as we went along, and the paint was shit. But it's still a good, of its time, it's a good piece. It's got drop shadow thing going on. It's like, these were sort of letter styles that must have been influenced from somewhere.
I mean, to be honest, for the time that piece went up, it was really kind of advanced. I mean, you didn't see really anything around London, that much that was like that. No,
but we must have had influences. So that we must have seen, probably it was like remembering what I'd seen in Wild Style film, remembering what I'd seen those do at that exhibition thing. It was like, you'd sit there and you sketch, copy ideas from memory, basically. So I've always been interested in typography, so I was making these shapes. And that was it. And then,
did you have a piece? But was you piecing up before you done the deaf piece? Was you
we were always sketching.
Always sketching.
Yeah, I've got in my bag. I've got some of the sketchbooks.
Yeah. Well, actually, anyone watching, we're going to go through Snake's sketchbooks at the end of this interview. So don't go nowhere.
Yeah, and then, I haven't got a sketch of the deaf piece because it was never sketched out first. It was done like, oh, well, that's the space we got. What should we do? It's like, and I don't know who came up with the death piece, the idea of it being the word death or whatever.
Or the Grim Reaper.
It was probably Frank with the Grim Reaper.
Was Frank more of like a character technician? Was he more on the characters? And
he was more into the characters and all that. And of course he had this other thing, he was in a band, Second Image, that were on Top of the Pops at one point, and he was trying to make a career as a musician at that point, so he was sort of half into it at that point. But he was also passionate. And what we also did at that time is, there was loads of warehouse parties going on. There was squat parties going on. So we'd be invited to come to these places, and one in Tottenham, there was one in Chelsea, and we'd like bring a load of paints. We're having thing. It might be some squat house that they're taking over for the night, or it might be something else. And you know, they say they'd have a wall or something. Often they'd end a bloody bed sheet. You know, they'd hang a bed sheet up, and you'd be trying to paint
on a bed sheet
with weak paint. It was like
actually with with spray paint or with
spray paint. It was always spray paint.
Using the spray.
And we did a few of them. I remember we carted two holders full of spray paint up King's Road to some warehouse part, and we got there and it was surrounded by police. And we'd walked the whole length of the King's Road because we didn't know where it was, and we didn't have money to get a bus and all that stuff at the time. So the police were going like, you know, have you come for the event, or are you one of the participants, organisers it? And we're trying to hide these kind of two holders of spray paint. Like, no, we just thought we'd heard about it, and we blah blah blah, and they let us go. We did a rooftop thing. What's that big old department store in Knightsbridge?
What on Derry Street? What, the rooftop?
Yeah, it might be Kensington High Street. I can't remember now. It's sort of there was an big old department, Barker's, I think it was.
Oh, Barker's, like yeah.
And it's down that way. Anyway, they had a rooftop garden, and there was a party on that, and we did a live piece there.
Wow. What did the piece say? You remember?
I really can't remember, and there's no photographs of it.
Wow.
It's like, no, you know, a lot of us didn't have cameras either.
Well, that's the thing, because like Snake, you think about it. We didn't know this graffiti thing was going to last as many years as what it has, and it's still going strong, if not stronger.
Oh,
so
everywhere.
we wasn't documenting that stuff back then.
No, we didn't have cameras. If anything, you might have had a 110 camera. I had a little Minox thing that my brother gave me at one point. You didn't document it sometimes because you didn't think it was worth it. You know, you weren't thinking about the future. You
didn't think it was important enough.
Yeah, you know. Yeah. But then my brother Chris told me recently that I told him that we were changing the world. You know, it's like, we're doing this new art form, it's changing the world, it's huge. We were so into it, but we also weren't thinking that it's going to be as big as it is. It is everywhere. Yeah, it's you know, and it's led to lots more street art as well around, which is, you know, not just graffiti, but the murals, as I like to call them. Murals.
I mean, even Snake, even back in the 70s and the early 80s, I remember as a kid, you know, seeing like there was quite a lot of like hippie graffiti as well. Do you remember the hippie graffiti?
There was a lot of hippie graffiti, and there was a lot of political murals.
Yeah.
Done.
What with the bomb, and also
the big atomic bomb one wasn't there?
Anti-bomb, like
yeah, there was all that.
Stop the bomb, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Stop the bomb.
Yeah, there was all that. There was a lot of political stuff going on. Yeah, but that was different, you know. That was for us. It was different. It was, you know, it was like, how do you get commission for that sort of stuff? We had no idea how you'd get commission for that sort of stuff. How you end up doing a side of a 4-story house in paint. It was like, wow, I'd love to be able to do that. You know, but how does that happen?
I know. Yeah, you got to know the right people.
Yeah.
But also, you know, obviously Crazy Carnival as well. What you know, a dynamite piece Crazy Carnival was. Tell me where that was.
The dynamite was also in Covent Garden, so that was about the same time after death. It was like, we'd done that, and I think we were irritated that we didn't have much space to play with, so we moaned and groaned to somebody or something. They gave us that wall down the side, you know, the whole length of it, and we did dynamite. And I sat down and I sketched that one out. I was living in Balham at that point, and I'd done a few local walls around there, and then basically, I just, you know, I sketched that out the type, and then Frank did his man character like that, and then we did the snake and CanMan bit next to it. We had like 2 or 3 days or long weekends, and we were doing that. And that was a really nice piece. I really enjoyed doing it. I remember doing that piece and enjoying it. I remember people, passers-by, coming up and asking what we're doing and talking to us, and, you know, a lot of time people pick up a spray can and try and have a go, and we're going, oh, hold on a minute, you know. So,
I'm in the middle. I'm in the middle of doing one.
Oi, what are you up to?
Yeah.
And lots of kids hanging around. So probably yourself, or, you know, somebody was like, what you say, 8 years younger than me or something, probably hanging around there as well, looking at what we were doing. And that was a nice piece. And then time out at this festival in Covent Garden once a year, which I've still got my little passes for. Arts festival. A lot of busking, lots of all sorts of stuff, but one of the things is they had a graffiti competition, so they gave us these hardboard sheets, which are what, 2-3 meters by 1.5 meters or something, and you could paint what you want on them, and they went round and judged it, and we did that, and then we'd take them home on the tube with us, and literally wedge it in between the doors, like diagonally in that wide space between the doors, and you travel back up to Tottenham or down to Balham with a graffitied up piece of hardboard.
Was you with the crazy carnival? Was you still using the rubbish paint? Or?
Yeah, I've always used the rubbish paint in London. It was like bunt lack was the only alternative, which was really expensive, and also I always found it too powerful. It's like, you know, you get this strength of spray that you couldn't control that much, and that it had like only a short range of colours, like 5 or 6 colours or something, and so it was really for primary work, and it was really expensive. And there wasn't
many places that sold it either, was there?
No, I mean, London Art Centre and
London Graphics,
London Graphics and all that stuff. Yeah, and Collier's or whatever. And I've never been a thief, so I didn't really want to nick it.
Well, you think about it. At the end of the day, you wasn't really a teenager, so
no, I wasn't.
You didn't want to get nicked and do some serious, like, maybe do a bit of time or whatever for theft.
No,
using your 20s.
I might have also been just too scared as well. I'm not. Yeah. This is who I am. I'm not. I mean, I've never felt I needed to do stuff because other people are doing it. So when you're talking about like I'm the lone wolf and I'm in crews and stuff, I was never felt I needed to do it because other people are doing it. I remember some guy giving a go at me saying, "Well, that's not proper graph because you're using kind of stencil work. You're putting like bits of card up to make a line." It's like, well, yeah, it's still graph. I'm still. Who are you to tell me that I'm doing it the right or wrong way? It's like, so. All hats off to the people that were racking cans and doing all that shit, and changing that. I never felt I was probably a bit too scared to do it. Yeah, I mean, I was always craving to find a nice big white wall, and I couldn't walk past a white wall without thinking I wanted love to be able to do that. So I was always looking out for walls to do, really, more than trains and buses. I never did the buses and stuff, and then.
So you wasn't really so much of a tagger. So you wasn't.
No, I was never much of a tagger. I remember my brother telling me that my mum was really proud when she saw my tag around the area, and she went, "Oh, Simon did that." It's like, but I wasn't much of a tagger.
Yeah.
I was more about shape and colour.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what it is, and I could do these big pieces, and I liked it. And then so me and Frank, I don't know, we ended up going our separate ways somehow. You just drift away. I was living down Balham. I bumped into Alex in Covent Garden, I guess, because he lived in Hendon. I lived in Balham. It used to take me like an hour and a half to get up to his place and vice versa. And we had this big, me and my mate Chris and 6 of us had this big flat share in Balham. And I graffitied up the place. I painted the fridge, I painted the bins, I painted the fireplaces. I did all sorts of shit like that, and my skates and all that were painted up down in Balham. And I met Alex at that point, and we were sitting around drawing and stuff like that. And he had some contacts. I don't know how, but he was like, "Oh yeah, you can do this piece in Covent Garden for the Carnival, in Ladbroke Grove for the Carnival, And we didn't have enough paint for it. I remember that. And I wanted to do these big colour blends, but there wasn't. It was like the spray wasn't again like good. So it looks a bit messy. Some of the colour stuff going on there, it's quite busy, I suppose, all the colour blends and stuff like that. Alex had a broken leg or damaged leg at the time, so we tried to do it on a step ladder. It was a laugh. People trying to nick our cans. It was a laugh, but
when did you hit up the Carnival?
86.
Oh, 86.
Yeah.
Well, so obviously, I think Alex would have been down with WD by then as well, World Domination.
Yeah, probably.
Or maybe just after. But,
and I was also, at that point, I was jumping between London and Hamburg. I had a girlfriend in Hamburg and I was living in London, and we were jumping, you could kind of jump on a train and get out there, It wasn't that expensive, and, I had a job in London, but I was freelance a lot of the time, so I could do that, and so I was spending a bit of time in Hamburg and a bit more time, in London, so I kind of then started to drift out of the London scene a bit after that.
Going back to the graph thing, Snake, there were some amazing artists in London. I mean, you had crews like the Chrome Angelz, Mo2. Big up to Mo2. I've just interviewed Mo2 actually.
Yeah, great work. Was great.
Big up to Mode and Scribbler, Zaki, all them guys.
Dodger.
And obviously, you had the Tough Arts crew, which were, amazing. Drone 2 with his amazing characters. London Giants, Jack 302 Jewski. I mean, did you like looking at, you know,
I
other
love
artists
looking at other people's work, and it inspired you, you know. So I mean, Mode was always a figure of his own. He was above a lot of us in his character style, and he was doing characters, you know, and he still is, and he's great at people observing and getting that energy in his drawings of how people party and behave, and he was always good at that, you know. So he was in a way a world of his own doing that stuff.
Oh, totally.
And he teamed up with the Chrome Angelz. I wasn't never part of, but we'd hang out a bit together, and I liked Scribbler's work. I thought he was always had good style, you know, good technique. Pride, I really loved his work. Always like, and a lovely guy as well.
Yeah, big up to Pride. What a lovely guy as well.
Pride. Yeah, great guy. And I've always loved his work. Again, just quality. And then Dodger, Artful Dodger.
Oh,
He's still doing it. He's still doing it. I bumped into him about 4 or 5 years ago. He did a piece in Crystal Palace.
You know, Artful Dodger was another amazing artist. I mean, he was in the crew called the Supreme Team.
Yeah.
Which was with Crash, Jap 302 and Plaz.
Yeah.
And a few others. But the Supreme Team was another amazing crew, like early doors.
Yeah. And he did this Weetabix one that was on Vauxhall.
Yeah.
I remember they had bouncers parked in the cars outside for the first couple of nights, make sure nobody went over it.
Weetabix like the actual character. Remember the billboards?
Yeah.
And trying to rip off like a Weetabix billboard off the actual billboard itself.
Yeah, exactly. So he got a commission for that, and he's still doing it though. You know, I did, like I said, I bumped into him. He's still doing. He kind of vaguely remembered who I was. He's still doing graph around London.
And the Artful Dodger tag was legendary, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That old kind of old English kind of style tag.
Yeah, he was good. So there was that lot. But I was never in a crew. You know, it was me and a partner of some kind. You know, or on my own a bit.
As a writer, you know, where was you kind of getting your inspiration from? Was it kind of like everyday life, looking at people, or just kind of just getting things out your head and thinking, oh, that'll make a great piece?
It was more. I got really obsessed with the shapes and more the shapes even than the colours, but the colours as well. So, and I still do that. I still sketch in pencil a lot of the time, just getting these nice shapes. What I like. So a lot of it in my head. I mean, obviously the books came out, you know, Subway Art and Spokehead Art and all that. And so there was lots of work that you could then look at and go, oh right, that's a nice shape, that's a nice form. And of course, you know, the Chrome Angelz developed that style of theirs.
I mean, they was like the super crew of London, weren't they?
They were.
You know, you couldn't really touch the Chrome Angelz, could you? I mean, there was some amazing artists out there, without a doubt. But as a crew, they was kind of like, they would have been the #1 crew, wouldn't they?
They were, and they did this sort of lettering style, which was really beautiful, and it became really popular. And a lot of people started copying that style. And after a while, I've got a feeling it was like, I was getting bored of seeing the same sort of styling going on after a while, because other people were mimicking it. But that's not knocking the quality of it. You know, it was good typography at the end of the day. It was good work, and then there was Mode's character work, and you know, so there was good stuff going on like that. So that it would all inspire you and lead you on to do stuff. But then you'd be sitting there doing your own and saying, well, you know, what happens if I do that? What happens if I do, you know, some of it's shit, some of it, you know, is great, and you keep honing it. You know, it's work. You're working it. So I was always sketching, and I still am. You know, I don't paint anymore, but not much. I'd like to do a piece actually. I've not done a piece in years.
I can't wait to see some of your Black Book stuff in a bit. But going back to Subway Art. I mean, Subway Art was kind of, for us as kids, and obviously you was a bit older, Subway Art was kind of a bit of a game changer as well. When that book come out,
it changed everything.
It blew. You know, it was '84 it come out, wasn't it? And you know, I think that was actually one of the most wrapped books in history. But
yeah.
Was there some key pieces and artists in Subway Art that kind of like blew you away? You was like, wow, look at that.
Well, I always liked Dondi's work. I always liked these. I always liked Scenes, and they were like the major ones for me, to be honest. Yeah, you know, I haven't looked at. I've still got my original copy of it actually, but I haven't looked at it in a while. You know, all the different New York writers.
Yeah, there were some incredible pieces in there, and also a little bit later when Spray Can Art come out.
But that was the London stuff mainly, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, like a bit of European and London,
well. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, Death Piece is in that, and it's uncredited as well because they didn't know who did it.
Oh, is that in Spray? Yeah, I haven't looked in Spray Can Art in years.
And it's just got unknown or something, but it was us. Yeah, so that again, you know, you'd get as much as you could. any source, you know. Like if there was a record cover that had it on it, you'd buy it for that typography, you know, a bit of graph on it or whatever. You take inspiration from all sorts of places.
And also, was there any kind of record sleeves that would inspire you as well? I know, like, I think it was the Jelly Bean cover, Doo-Wopski or whatever it was called, with the, I think it was seen, and they done like a rooftop. Did you ever see that? It was like a rooftop piece they done on this, and they used it as a cover of an album, or a 12-inch.
Now you mention it, yes, I do remember.
Jelly Bean.
Yeah, I do. Yes, yeah, I do remember that.
Jelly Bean,
great.
yeah.
That was great. That was. I completely forgotten it until you said that. But you're right. It was that. Yeah, that was really impressive. That was really inspiring. And also Keith Haring. You know, I always liked Keith Haring's work. I liked his style and all that. You know, and so when like Duck Rock came out, I mean, it's not. You know, I know. We think about Malcolm McLaren and the way he just took stuff, but again, it was still part of that era and that scene, and you know, I liked it. I liked all that Keith Haring work that was in there.
Yeah, no, I love his style as well.
Yeah, you know, so there was oh god, there was something else that's gone from my mind, but there was a few record covers.
So those street sounds as well, even though it wasn't graphed up, them street sounds, the way the like say Street Sounds Electro 1. You know, the way the artwork on those albums are great as well.
Yeah. So there was a lot of that kind of inspired. It was, you know, it was in the air. Yeah, and there was pop videos and there was all sorts of stuff going on. So it was in the air. There was stuff coming at you.
And you had a lot of them heavy metal albums as well. If you looked at the albums, some of the characters and the you know, the artwork on those albums at 12 inches were next level.
Yeah, and the lettering on them as well. You know, I was never in heavy metal and stuff like that.
Iron Maiden and AC/DC and all that.
Yeah. Although I'm going to see Napalm Death next week. I was never massively into heavy metal and rock music, but yeah, the covers were like that, you know.
The covers are great.
Yeah. You know, so you took the inspiration from everywhere. I've always read a lot of comics. I've always read comics, even though I'm not a cartoon character. So I've always loved, and I still do. So there was all that sort of stuff.
What comics did you love from back then?
Well, when I was a kid, it was Asterix. I absolutely loved Asterix. But,
did you?
I mean, there was the Robert Crumb. You know, there was all that stuff, which I really loved and still love. And there was a lot of American underground comic stuff that I always liked.
Yeah, there were some incredible illustrators there and artists out there.
There was Mobius doing his stuff as well, which is really beautiful. You know, I've grown out of it now, but it was really beautiful at its time. And there was a magazine called Heavy Metal, and that had a lot of artwork and stuff like that in it as well. So you know, and there was Oz, you know, and there was all these, you know, which had all this hippie kind of writing and almost like graffiti stuff in it. Letter styles, bubbly letter styles, you know. There was Albert Ayler's jazz album, which was all these funky. I mean, Albert Ayler's like extreme hardcore jazz, avant-garde jazz, but the cover of this album was like
blew your mind.
It was just a beautiful typography, bubbles and shapes and stuff like that, you know. So there was all this stuff that it was there in the ether.
So literally everywhere you was looking, you was being inspired.
Yeah, and I still am. You know, I look at typography. There's a sign around the corner for me. I keep meaning to nick it. It's great. It's on a garage, and it's it's like something. Do not park here. Blah blah blah. It's a bit longer than that, but it's done in vinyl letters, and it's all peeling off. And it's been there for years now, and it's all slowly peeling off. And the shapes of the letters, because they're peeled off, almost looks like graffiti.
Oh, you should go and nab it.
I've taken photographs of it.
Go and nab it.
I'm really tempted to go nick it. It's just a nice.
Let us know where it is.
It's organically grown.
Let us know where it is. We have a drive down now.
Yeah, it's down near Norwood Junction. I'll tell you more details at some point.
Yeah, don't give too much away.
But it's it's just a sign that says about not parking somewhere. But the way the letters are peeled off, it looks almost like it's written in graffiti, and it's just a nice block of typography. And so you get inspiration from all these these shapes and these letter forms and all sorts of stuff. Really.
Oh, without a doubt, and the branding, the logos, and everything.
Yeah.
What was the main reason? You gave up doing the graph.
I kind of grew out of it. I moved to Hamburg in about 80. But I was going to and forwards a bit through the 80s. But in about 89, I moved out there, and I did I did a few pieces out in Hamburg. So I worked on a short film festival, no budget film festival. A mate of mine had set up, and I did a big piece for them. And I did my mate's car, Amadeus, that was his name. I did his car, and I did a few.
What do you mean you done his car?
I sprayed his car, so I graffitied up his car. He asked me to. He wanted his name, Amadeus, down one side, and he wanted Zoom down the other side. German paint wasn't much better than British, but it sprayed better, but it came in really primary colours, so there wasn't a wide range of colours. And again, it was like a bit like the Bundok stuff. It was strong. You know, it was like you couldn't do a lot of subtle stuff at that point. And you know, we were always trying to find caps and nozzles and stuff from different airspray cans and spray mount cans or whatever that would give you a fine line. You're always in the hunt for like finding this can that would give me a fine line. You know, I have to think, can I get it? Because you know, sometimes you'd be doing, you know, the side of a car's not a big space to paint on. You know, so I moved out to Hamburg there, and then I did my mate's flat. I did his kitchen. I did 4 walls and the ceiling, and I got really ill from the toxic stuff of it, and I was rough for a couple of weeks after that. And I thought, I did a shop interior as well, which got no photographs of, but I kind of, you know, I was doing this in Hamburg, and there wasn't a big scene in Hamburg of graffiti. So there was that thing about graffiti being in the air in London. It wasn't in Hamburg. I wasn't getting inspiration. I was repeating myself a bit. I was getting a bit bored of doing the same thing. I was moving on to different things, really, I suppose. You know, I kind of filtered out of it. But after doing my mate's kitchen, I kind of had enough, and I kept my books and I kept sketching, but I never really did it much more.
And also, obviously, for health reasons.
Yeah, you know, and I just wasn't feeling it. You know, I was on other stuff. I was trying to make a living in a foreign country as well, trying to find work and all that. You know, and then I did a little piece on the Berlin Wall before they knocked it down, but I can't remember what or where. So I was going to Berlin quite a lot at that point, where the wall was still up. But it wasn't a big piece, you know, nothing more than a throw up, really.
And Snake, what do you do for work nowadays?
I'm a graphic designer. I've always been a graphic designer. So I left school. I went to a shit school, a really brutal English school, you know, and I had a terrible art teacher. Really, everything I've done in life is in spite of my education, to be honest. But my family worked in the industry a bit, and I went and got jobs in the design studios in Soho as a junior, and worked my way up and kept working and learning the trade. And it was all done in analog at that point, you know, it was all cut and paste. And I worked and then I, you know, freelanced in London and Hamburg, and I've got jobs in agencies, small design studios, and you know, different things. So I'm still a graphic designer. My brother Chris said to me years ago, he said, you know, keep evolving. I remember when the computers came in, all these older people suddenly lost their job because they couldn't adapt. So
did you you had to adapt?
You have to adapt all the time. Cultures change, techniques change, technology changes. You know, I've done a lot of book design, I've done packaging design, I've done all sorts of stuff. I'm kind of fluid like that. And then, you know, I taught myself how to code and do front end code, which is, you know, HTML and CSS. Built my own websites doing that, sort of teaching me stuff. Got a job now designing software for the NHS, so I do the front end design of that. Other people do the complex back end stuff, and I do the user interface, the navigation through it, the styling of it. And you know, I taught myself how to do that code, and you learn on the job, and you bullshit a bit to get in there, you know, to get into the jobs. So I've got to make a living, you know. Yeah. And I've always done this, and I don't know how long this will last. I'm 60 now. You know, I want to keep doing this as long as I can, but I'll probably have to evolve again. You know, at some point you have to.
No, without a doubt. And we all will. I mean, it's like us with the black cabs now. We got apps like Free Now and Get and Taxi app. You know, and people are like using these apps to like book us basically, which is fine. You know, we're getting loads of work off of it. So yeah, it is about evolving, and you know. But to be honest though, I do miss those old days.
Well, yeah, I do. But I've still got my airbrushes. I've still got a lot of my old drawing equipment from the early days of graphic design, and you know, I've still got them in boxes, and I think it'd be nice but I'm not that nostalgic in the sense that I want to really go back to those days. You know, it used to take you a couple of days to do a layout of a magazine spread, and you know, now it takes you a couple of hours. You know, so you can do a lot more in time. But
and you can email it to someone.
But the quality of the design still takes the same amount of thinking.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So if you're doing a really good piece of layout, design work, magazine, book, whatever, the time it takes, the mental time it takes, the processing time, a lot of your creativity stuff is not done at the drawing board or on the computer. It's done on the sofa and on the bus or on the walk or whatever. You know, it's like it's ticking over in your head. You think about it really hard.
Yeah.
It's there, and then you can work it up.
Yeah.
Or sometimes you haven't got that time and you just have to hammer away at it and do the best you can, and sometimes it's not always what you want it to be. It's a commercial industry, it's commercial art. That means you're doing it for other people. You don't always get your best work or what you'd really like, because there's a compromise there. As a designer, you're not doing, you know, as an artist you're doing your own thing. As a designer you're commissioned. You're doing it for someone else. There's always a client involved who wants their logo bigger. Five logos, one in each corner, which I did some work for Sony. It was like, we've got 5 logos, we want one in each corner of this brochure. You've only got 4 corners. You know, it's like, okay. So you have to deal with people like that sometimes.
Yeah, no, I know.
12-year-olds heads of marketing. Yeah, sometimes it's a compromise.
Being creative and so creative of what you've always been. I mean, you've been creative from a very early age to what you are now. Is it quite therapeutic? You know, I mean, do you get kind of lost in the art form, and you can shut away from like the madness which is going on in the world?
It can be. It's weird because creativity is my job in that sense. You know, I do it as a job. I'm a designer as a job, and therefore you're doing it 8 to 10 hours a day. Yeah. Sometimes you think to yourself, I'd love to be able to do this kind of, do something else and do this as a hobby, so I can get lost in it. You know, doing it for myself. I'm getting passionate. So it can be, but you know, as I'm designing, drawing and stuff as a living, it's sometimes not that I want to do it as my spare time. What we all need, and I think everyone will agree watching this, we need Snake back with his spray paint spraying on the walls. Well, I sprayed my Bluetooth speaker, as they call them now. I sprayed the front of that last week, and I sprayed my paints, my skates, but they're small little things, you know. They were just like colour effects and, you know, big S on the front of the speaker. Well,
listen, hopefully we'll see you out there, maybe like Stockwell or Waterloo or wherever, Leek Street Tunnel, doing a legal, piece.
There's legal walls down near me. I'd like to do it with someone. I'd like to do it with other people, to be honest.
So anyone watching this, get on Snake's case now. We've got to get him out of retirement. It's time. Look, you're never too old for this.
No, you're not. You know, last year I was experimenting doing it in stained glass window. So I went on a stained glass window course because I always wanted to learn that. And so I thought, what can I do? I'm going to do some type. I'm going to do some graph. So I did individual pieces of letters. Only like 10 inches wide, you know, side. Just how can I do that? Because there's so much restrictions in glass, you know, the shapes you can cut, the way it's formed, the way you join it. You know, have I got the facilities to colour the glass? Because it's either you're working with coloured glass or you want to put an effect on it, a bit like a spray can, which I managed to do at that class. But to do it at home, I'd need a furnace. I'd need sort of certain equipment I haven't got to give like texture to it. But I was curious, you know, to see what, you know, can I do it? Because, you know, with stained glass you get this beautiful light colours coming through and all that. You know, it'd be lovely. Love to do a stained glass window, a proper serious stained glass window piece of graph. That would be really interesting.
It would look amazing in the cab. Imagine if we could put it in the skylight.
Yeah,
stained glass window.
You need to come round when you're down my way. Give me a shout, and I'll show you the pieces in real life. Because you know you're never going to see them in a photograph like they look in real life, because the light changes all the time. Yeah. But they're not big. You know, they're experimental pieces I did on a class. I was learning it.
And in terms of graffiti nowadays, I mean, there's some, there's some amazing artists out there, you know, that have been doing it for years and years since they was kids, and they're still doing it today.
Yeah.
There's also a lot of like, you know, the younger generation coming through and also, you know, putting their names up and doing this like incredible graph on walls. And there's also, you know, you got your people like, you know, your 10 foot, your Helch and people like that, which are doing, you know, these like unbelievable spots like rooftops and bridges and all that, which is very obviously very dangerous what they're doing. But do you kind of still like to look at that stuff?
I like to look at it. I mean, I've never that bothered about tagging. You know, it was like it didn't mean much to me. And look at 10 foot's work. It's like it's basic, but it's not about that with him, is it? It's about the adrenaline of trying to get into awkward places and illegal places, and you know, it's a bit like a cat burglar. He's trying to kind of get into where he's not meant to be and do something difficult and get away with it. You know. And then there's a lot of young people doing some great work, I've got to say. And the paints are something, you know, I wish we had those paints they got now. I mean, they're great.
Could you imagine if you had the paint back then? Like,
I'd be so much better, because I've always looked at my work and think, you know, I could be better, you know.
And the choice of colours as well.
Yeah, you know, reading Caleb Nealon's book about London graffiti, it made me realise, you know, what a small part I played in it. You know, I might have been early, but there was people doing a lot more and experimenting, you know, and you know, and also Grade's book on, you know, writing over windows, whatever it's called. Really good book to read, you know, 'cause it's really personal about being a graffiti artist. You know, it's like telling you what it was like for him, yeah. And he was doing stuff I wasn't doing, you know. He was doing all the yards and all that, and so there's a lot of that world I didn't even know. And then now there's some great work out there. There's a lot of old style coming back though. A lot of people are doing kind of pretty old style, you know, almost 80s, late 80s styling of graffiti. But then you go to Barcelona and they've always had a different sense of art, and they've got a very different sense of graffiti style. You go to Berlin, it's a very different style. You go to Paris, it's very, there are different areas that have different, and cultures have different styling of letter forms and shapes and cartoons and just a visual, different visual language, even though it's still graph, and that I find really interesting. And then, you know, it's everywhere. You kind of stop looking at it if you're not careful, but then a piece catches your eye. Either its technique is fantastic, or its structure is fantastic, and it stops you in your tracks and you go, yeah, that's really good. Or if you're lucky, it's both of those, and you go, okay, there's like this goes up there in the 10% of the good.
Yeah.
You know, and so you do still really see some good stuff. You know, down there where I live, down in Pens, there's loads of great street art. There's some really good street art. They're not graphs, but they're good street artists who are doing some really interesting, playful stuff. That all kind of comes out of the graph scene. Still, even though they're not doing graph. Yeah, they're, you know, it's part of the evolution of it all.
Well, I'm pretty sure, wasn't it Banksy? Didn't he used to be used to do graph, and then he turned into doing them kind of, you know, like I suppose like you could say like a street artist. Yeah,
he did. I mean, his early I remember going to his early shows in London, somewhere else up in North East London somewhere. He did a show, and it was, you know, it was really good. It was early pieces, and it was graph, you know. He was playing around, but he was also playing on side of pigs and cows and shit. You know, he was experimental. I got a lot of time for Banksy in his playfulness and his messaging and stuff like that. You know, and I've always been interested in stencil work. Even back in the early 80s in Paris, there was Black and there was other people doing great stencil work. 5 colour pieces of stencil, you know, which had taken them, they might not have been very big, but they were like, you know, multicoloured pieces of stencil work. I was always impressed by them lot. So that's always been a bit of a sideline interest of mine. I did a bit of stencil work myself, I liked it. Up until recently I had a piece in Hamburg that was still there 35 years on. I did a piece of stencil work, and it's slowly faded now. I'm going to stick it over and all that, but it's still there.
Wow.
So that's a long time. And it's only like, you know, the size of a record cover. It was an experimental piece I did of my face. Yeah.
So I reckon it'd be great to look through your black books and any old sketches of photographs or whatever. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to jump in the back with the camera, and then I'm going to film what we've got. So don't go anywhere, anyone, because we're going to be unleashing Snake's books.
Okay.
So we're ready to go, and we've got Snake's black book in the back. So tell me about this.
Well, this is one of the earlier books I had. Dala 3405, if anybody's really that interested. So this is some early pieces.
Wow,
3
look at that.
years, so that's 86.
What's that say?
That says 3 years plus.
Oh yeah, see the free. Look at that.
Yeah.
Look at for a free. Wow.
Just street hockey. So that was. I should we do that as a T-shirt actually?
Look at
Violence.
That. So say violence.
Yeah. So I'm going too far. Tell me if I'm
No,
going
no,
too
no,
fast.
no, it's cool.
Snot. So I was playing around with this bubblegum lettering, which I've got other examples of, and that was one of the early pieces I did with that.
Yeah.
I wanted to do that in Denmark, but I never got around to it. So a lot of letter forms. That was Bboy. Do you remember Bboy? It was Denham Elliott's son. He did that in my sketchbook.
Wow, look at that.
That was nice actually.
Who done that?
Bboy. It was Alex to tell you who he is. So that's my original drawing for Crazy Carnival.
Is that the original?
Yeah, so it's not the sketch, it was the original inked up drawing letter forms. So that says April 86.
Wow.
And then I was playing around with some ribbon lettering. You know, how can you do type form in ribbons?
Amazing, I love that.
You know, that says, so that's a jazz piece which I did as a t-shirt later on. You'll see that later on. You'll see that later on. I did it as a t-shirt design. Ariane, that's a piece I did for Alex.
Yeah.
Just the more letter forms. Started to get quite formulaic, I'd say, in some of the letter forms. But then, you know, that S I really like. Yeah.
Beautiful.
And just outlines and stuff, you know. I don't know what that party. Sugar pot with a little character next to it. And then there's this, which I've had since I started doing graffiti, which is my kind of a folio. I know you want to get your phone and take some pictures, but you can take the pictures at the end.
Yeah. No. Talk me through the. Talk me through this.
Book in '86, but it was
So this.
it's kind of me just cataloguing my work. So that's CanMan. There he is. Next to a Jam Club piece we did.
Is that CanMan?
Yeah. So there he is, standing next to it.
Yeah.
My mate Ali, I did his jacket.
Look at that.
So when we were doing the street hockey. So yeah,
86.
86. So there's a lot in 86, I've got to say. That must have been my dominant year. Some other sketches. That was a t-shirt. That was a combat piece. It was done as a t-shirt.
Combat.
Yeah. There's a dynamite piece. So there's my original sketch for dynamite.
Wow, look at that. Is that an original?
That's the original piece, original sketch.
Wow. That's incredible. What have we got there?
That's the final piece. Done. Don't know who that was. Happy birthday sketch. I showed that to Charlie O'Hahn at the exhibition. He really liked it.
That's beautiful.
I got him to
Happy
take my book.
birthday,
Yeah, I got him to take my book.
85.
We did some stuff for Bazooka Joe's, which is like a little warehouse party club thing somewhere. A bit cartoony through. That's my old. So that's the crunch piece.
That's the crunch.
This is my original drawing for it. So that was 84, that one.
Wow.
There's my sneaker. I wish I still had those sneakers.
Look at that.
So
what's this on the side?
Snake.
Snake.
Yeah, that's my bubblegum writing that I was doing.
What are they? What
They're
sneakers?
Nikes.
Are they Nike? And what's this?
Graffiti. That was a t-shirt. That was a hoodie that I did. So 84. I did. That was my hoodie that I'd walk around the streets with. There's a carnival. There's details of the carnival.
Yeah.
Piece. It's kind of unfinished, but then there's more sketches. That was done in Vejle in Denmark. Urban Decay, starting to get a little bit political, but not that political. There's jazz. And
wow, look at that.
Panic Wildstar piece down there.
March 85.
So yeah.
Beautiful.
You know, playing around the car. There's my mate Amadeus's car. I did a tattoo for him. I haven't got a picture of that. I did a tattoo for him as well. Got on his arm. It's just the letter A. So it might be one of the first graph tattoos, to be honest. But I don't have a picture of it. That's Amadeus standing next to his car.
Incredible.
He's now an ambulance driver.
That style.
Yeah. Crazy.
March 85. Was the crazy one?
The crazy one is 85.
Look at that.
And then in my flat in Ballum I painted up, well that's a bit of did for Berlin, Switzerland. Then I painted my bins and stuff in my flat. And I painted my fridge and my fireplaces, you know, the old Victorian flats, boarded up fireplaces and stuff. So Africa, just for fun, that piece. So you couldn't do blends like that easily on spray cans, but in the paints that we had that well, I couldn't anyway. And then there's a piece I did, which is the same character again. I did that in a flat in Hamburg for somebody. That was their living room or something.
Did you do the character?
Yeah, I was on my own in Hamburg. I basically nicked Frank's thing. There's a piece I did for No Budget Film Festival.
Yeah.
And then there's my original bubblegum piece that I wanted to do.
Look at that.
But never got the chance to do in
You've
Denmark.
got to rock that.
You know, I mean, I did really simple basic letter forms, but it's just all stuck together with bubblegum.
Yeah.
And that's kind of that piece. Where here there's an old bump black colour chart somewhere. Yeah, it's all.
I mean, this is like delving into the vaults, into the Black Book vaults.
Yeah, so there's all sorts of sketches, pieces of paper. I did some surfboards. There's one of my first stencils of Isabella Rossellini that I loved. Look over, and I just did that as a stencil around places. And there's an old bump black colour chart for the paint that they would sell. So you didn't have that wider range of colours.
There wasn't many colours, was there?
No, it's pretty primary colours.
Yeah.
You know, like 1, 2 yellows.
Maybe like about 20, 30 colours.
Yeah, that was it, really. A jazz t-shirt. Me wearing it in Paris.
Is that you? Is that a young snake?
That's me when I had hair. There's my original skates. I've still, you know what? Cryptos. I've still got.
Are they Cryptos? Yeah.
I'm still using them. 40-year-old work. I'm still using them.
Wow.
They're good.
Kryptonics. Yeah.
Yeah, they're still good. Well, that's the stuff I did in Hamburg for the kitchen. So I was doing this stuff, and that's what kind of made me ill in the end. And then some cute little thing I found in the street in New York once. I don't know who did it, but I really liked it. So there's some other people's work there as well, you know, and there's stuff on the Berlin Wall. And there's some surfboards that I painted for somebody. So there's cartoon that I did based on my brother's drawing. There's Saskia next to it, and yeah, surfboard stuff. That was, God, that's 80s. I don't know when. I don't know. There's my hand. I always liked getting paint on my hand. That's it. There's me painting the car.
The young snake.
Painting the car. There's a t-shirt in the studio, actually, brother's studio.
Wow.
So yeah. The analog cutting boards. Yeah. Paint another car. Lots of bubbles on it. And then there's some black and stuff like that I saw in Paris that I really liked. So yeah, I liked that early stencil work. I found it interesting in its time. There was some good work there.
And what's the car?
This one? That's the Amadeus car.
Amadeus.
Yeah.
The one you was talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, you know.
Could you drive about in that?
Yeah, it was this running car.
You can't even see through the windows.
Well, no, that's because I've taped them up, so you can.
Oh, yeah. So I thought you'd take over the windows.
Yeah. That's it. Letter from the street entertainers lot from Covent Garden about the festival, and you know, I've been accepted into doing a piece.
What can I say? Absolute brilliant interview, Snake. Absolute brilliant cab chat. And I hope you've enjoyed it as well. Yeah,
it's been fun. I had not thought about this stuff for a long time, and it started to come back at me. Like I said, you know, it's sort of people asking me questions, and I don't even know why sometimes. You know, which I find a bit odd. But then, you know, I was early, but I wasn't, you know, always that important in the scene. But I was early, so, and I've got, you know, stuff, and I'm still doing it in my own little way. Yeah. Somewhere along the line.
Well, we need to get Snake back out of retirement.
I'd like to do a piece. I would. Yeah. I'm not that bothered. I'm not hungry enough that I'm going to go and organise it myself. But I'd kind of be interested to do it. And I'd like to play around with these new they're not new anymore, but you know, the current paints that people use. and see what the blending of the colours is. And
listen,
like
we'll get you out in the summer.
Yeah.
We do that bubble gum.
As well, you know?
Yeah. I probably would. I've had a little dabble. I haven't done nothing since '85 when I gave up. But yeah, maybe I should do a little kind of throw up or something.
Do any harm with it?
Nah.
We'll put some sounds on, and we'll have an afternoon or day or 2 days or whatever.
Yeah, I'll get
loads of legal walls now. You can just knock up and paint something. You know?
Yeah, it's nothing like what it used to be. Yeah, looking over your shoulder.
Yeah, well, you've got time now
to concentrate.
Yeah, and you know, hone down a technique or whatever. You know, but I'm doing other stuff now. You know, I'm skating. I'm basically most of my free time is skating. That's what I'm doing.
And Snake, how can people find out about you? Have you got like Instagram or?
My Instagram's got other. Yeah, I've got Instagram, Simon Charville, but there's not a lot of graph on it. It's more like I'd walk around and take pictures of stuff I see in the street, stuff you see at the corner of your eye. I've been doing that for years. I've got Economy Custard, my FLICKR thing, so there's an album on that of just my graffiti. There's other stuff, there's my work on it, my graphic design, there's all sorts of stuff. So that London street signage thing that I told you about, you know, the letter spacing for the City of London streets. Did all that, that's on there.
Yeah, I can't believe you've done that. So quickly say for the camera, what did you do with them street signs?
I was 18, I suppose. My brother had his design company. We were commissioned to design the street signage for the City of London. So,
wow.
You know, where it says London Bridge or it says Fenchurch Street or whatever, you know, and it's, in some ways it's kind of boring, you know, it's just, graphic design is an industry, it's an invisible art sometimes, you don't see what people do. We spent months working out like 4,000 combinations of how the letter spacing, so anybody could put this letter in together to make up a new sign that would, you know, say whatever street it is or whatever building it is or whatever, and it would be consistent. And my brother designed a typeface, he's designed a few typefaces, and you know, we had it cut and we worked the system out. I've still got my artworks for it, and it's still in use.
They're still using it as a typeface.
You know, so when you walk past the street sign, you know, it is literally the name of the street. It's nothing more than that quite often. You know, that's what I did.
Just that little thing. Yeah.
Know, and the Economy Custard comes from, I was designing for Happy Shopper. We designed their logo, and I redesigned a lot of all their packaging. Not on my own, you know, we're in a team. And I realised that they kind of sold everything. You know, they sold, you know, pencils, cat food, potatoes, whatever. And one of the brands they had, one of the things they sold was Economy Custard. You know, because Happy Shopper was like a cheap brand, and it was like, who would buy something that sort of says the word economy in it? You know, it's a bit odd, but it's like, you know, cheap. I mean, custard's cheap anyway, so they got like the cheap version. I just thought it was a good name. I thought, so I'm going to call my project Economy Custard. So that's where that comes from. You know, and I'm still using that occasionally.
Listen, I also want to give a big RIP, obviously, to your mum and your brother as well. But I mean, your mum, what an absolute legend as well. You know, to bring up a big family like that, obviously losing your dad at an early age, you know, what an absolute legend.
She was vibrant, yeah. I mean, like I said to you, she was performing on stage at 93, supporting Joe Brand, tweeting her poetry and her short stories and stuff.
Yeah.
So she had, yeah, good energy. My sister's got the same energy, I've got to say, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, big family. You know, my writing partner.
Yeah, big up to Alex.
He's good, CanMan and all that, you know.
Yeah. Big up to CanMan.
And I got to introduce you to Andy Sinclair. You want to have a chat?
Yeah, he's want to talk about the robotic.
Nothing to do with graffiti.
Yeah. No, because I used to do robotics as well back in '81, early '80s. So I'd love to talk to him about the robotics scene, especially in Covent Garden.
Yeah.
But listen, I'm absolutely blown away, Snake, once again by this interview. You've been done absolutely amazing, considering you haven't really spoke about this stuff for like 40 odd plus years. And I hope you've enjoyed it as well.
Yeah, it's been a blast. I didn't know what to expect. So, you know, it's I've never done anything like this really. So it's
listen, all hats off to you.
Yeah.
I'll take mine off.
I'll take mine off by the air.
But listen, big up to you. And listen, anyone watching this, check out my other interviews. I've interviewed people like Public Enemy, Man Parish, Scarf Tough Arts, Score, TRC, Scheme, T-Kid, Scam, Don. There's too many to mention. There's too many to mention.
Yeah.
But listen, big up to you as well, Snake. It's been an absolute honour.
Yeah, it's been good. It's been good.
Let's do a little fist punch.
If you want, yeah.
Peace out, my man.
Yeah, nice to meet you, man. I'm glad to bump into you at the exhibition. That's what this came out of, wasn't it?
Yeah, and Alex as well. Yeah.
Yeah. That was such a good fucking exhibition.
That was brilliant, wasn't it?
About that is right. I got to tell you this. I knew about the exhibition. I didn't have an invite for the party, right? So my friend Rosanna. She writes a blog and she's a journalist, and she got a press pass, so we went along to the press thing, and Mode was there and Future and Lady.
I was meant to go to that as well. The press in the daytime. I was meant to go, but I didn't realise.
And you know, I got Future to take my book, and Lady Pink and a few other people Crash and all that. And I heard about the party was going on. I didn't have a ticket, and Alex. I rang up Alex and said, "Can you get me a ticket?" And he said he couldn't get me one, but he was coming. So I had no option but to stay, because if I'd left, I wouldn't have been able to get in for the party. So I stayed in the gallery for 12 hours on my own. There was a few stragglers. There was a point when all these buyers came in with loads of jewellery and a couple with bodyguards and all that were walking around. But I was basically chatting to the girls that work in the exhibition space and all that, and sitting there with a sketchbook and sitting there getting hungry because I didn't have any food, waiting for the party to start, hoping they wouldn't kick me out. Every time somebody important walked by, I'd kind of scurry off around the corner. And then the party started, and one of my skater friends, Billy, who I know only through skating, was the DJ for the night. So I rang him up and he said he'd get me in, but I was already in. And he turned out he's an old mate of Alex, completely unconnected to me in that way. And he knows all my old graffiti writers, partners and all that, and we must have known each other as kids. We must have known each other in that cruise around Covent Garden and all that, but we don't remember each other. And that was just a blast of a night, you know. So I had these kind of two worlds colliding in a way, and Billy's a great DJ. It was a good laugh that night, wasn't it? And, you know.
Oh, Billy, you on about oh fuck,
So I know him as Billy.
From London, Billy Business,
Yeah,
Billy Business,
So
yeah, from London Posse, yeah.
Well, I didn't remember him from the old school, but I knew him recently through skating.
Wow.
So we met completely in a different world, kind of thing.
Yeah.
That night.
Merged into one. Yeah.
I had a great bus. It was, I was hungry as shit at the end of it. I was, you know, it was good. I'm still going to go back to the exhibition, but I'm going to go, you know.
I'm going back this weekend.
I'm going to take my niece at some point. She's alright.
Yeah.
And another niece is really into it at the moment. So it was good. Beyond the Street, you've got to big it up. It's a bit pricey, I think, for an exhibition.
You can get a family ticket for 50, I think it's 55 quid, which is reasonable.
Quid otherwise, isn't it, if you go
but if your niece ever watches this, your uncle is a proper legend.
People called me that. I'm a bit uncomfortable with that.
No, I know what you mean. You like to keep,
Yeah, thank you. It was fun. And meeting some people I'd never met, like Grade and his mate Stevie. Well, I only talked to briefly, but I like their work. I like what their energy and their ethos of what they're doing. They're doing something completely different from me, or they were. I don't know if they're still doing it. Just, you know, just had a load of them, really.
Yeah.
Chat, you know.
No, there's a lot of good people in this scene.
There is. It's a friendly scene.
Yeah, it's a friendly scene.
Mostly.
And we've got to keep it that way as well.
Yeah.
And don't worry about the haters. Do you know what I mean? Because there's a few haters out there.
Haters.
Yeah.
Always haters, man. Just ignore them.
But anyway, let's switch off because I've got to go back to work and earn a few quid. And Snake, you got to get back to the back on the train, innit?
Yeah, back out of Crystal Palace. There's loads of graffiti artists at Crystal Palace. Old graffiti artists. Mr. Sens lives there and does his work.
Oh, Sens, yeah. Sens is wicked.
He's at Crystal Palace and
yeah.
He's a mate of mine. You know.
Yeah, no, Sens is wicked.
You know. So yeah.
But big up to ya.
Yeah.
Big up the big snake.
Yeah, all right.
Peace out.
Turn your camera off.